James, if you're not willing, Mom and Dad will just decline. It's okay. Don't put pressure on yourself. We'll always figure something out. I looked at the new fine lines at the corners of my mom's eyes and the white hairs on my dad's head. In just 1 month, they seemed to have aged several years. Although they looked haggard, they still forced a smile to comfort me. I knew they really had no other way. I shook my head and said, Dad, Mom, who said I'm not willing? The Chi family is a big and powerful family. Logically speaking, it's actually me who's marrying up by getting married into the Chi family. It'll be so prestigious to say it out. Moreover, the youngest son of the Chi family is quite good looking. Anyway, I don't think it's a bad deal. You child, always so flippant. We just feel sorry for you. You've been so good to me. I've been able to grow up healthy and happy all thanks to you too. Don't think about unnecessary things. Just calmly get through this difficult time for the company. After saying that, I stepped forward to hug them both and then slipped away. I really didn't care. It's all the same who I marry. The Chi family can save my dad's company, so I have no objections. All along, my parents have always respected me and treated me very well. They've never forced me to do anything. Now that I can share some of the family's burden, I'm actually quite happy. At least they won't be so tired anymore. It seems that the youngest son of the Chi family doesn't take a fancy to me. I heard that Lucas had a big fight with his family and even staged a drama of running away from home. However, he was caught by his father just as he reached the front gate and hasn't been released yet. Anyway, before my dad's company gets better, I'll just lie low for now. I'll try my best to please the youngest son of the Chi family. After all, at this time, only the Chi family is willing to help us. This marriage must happen. When I stepped into the compound of the Chi family, I couldn't help but feel nervous. However, the compound in front of me was not as luxurious as I had imagined. Instead, it was quite simple and low-key. There were many violets planted in the yard. Seeing my curiosity, the butler said the madam likes violets and these were all planted by the young master himself. I didn't expect Lucas to be so filial. I nodded at the butler with a look of understanding and followed him forward. Just as I reached the door, I heard a voice coming from inside. I'm definitely not going to get married. If you want to get married, you do it. Then a female voice sounded. Son, why don't you listen to me? This omega has a pheromone compatibility rate of up to 98.55% with you. And don't I know what kind of person you like? You have to trust your mother's judgment. I guarantee that once you see him, you'll definitely like him. This voice must be Lucas and his mother. No wonder the Chi family wants me to marry Lucas. It turns out that our pheromones have a high compatibility rate. Madam, young master, the young master of the Shin family has arrived. After the butler said that, he left. I stepped inside and saw Lucas with brown curly hair sitting on the sofa with his arms crossed. Next to him was his mother. There were 2 black-clothed men standing upright on both sides of the sofa, looking a bit like security guards. I pretended to be very natural, forced a cute smile, and greeted this lady. Hello, Auntie. Lucas' mother smiled happily and replied, Oh, what a well-behaved child. She walked over and took my hand. A faint scent of violets lingered around my nose. She led me to a place about a meter away from Lucas and then stopped. Lucas, this is the omega I told you about, James. I could actually detect a hint of expectation in her tone. Up close, Lucas had a mole on the tip of his nose, long and curly eyelashes, and a pair of almond-shaped eyes. However, his gaze was fierce and he kept staring at me. It seemed that he really didn't like me. I tugged at the corners of my mouth and forced a flattering smile at him. Hello, my name is James. Actually, I wanted to shake hands to show my friendliness, but the distance was a bit far and Mrs. Chi was tightly holding my hand as she looked at Lucas sitting on the sofa. Suddenly, Lucas stood up, still glaring at me fiercely. Then, a strong smell of wine wafted towards me, making my legs go weak. I was shocked. Was he going to come up and beat me up? Holding back my discomfort, I quietly took a step behind Mrs. Chi. Mrs. Chi glanced at the 2 men in black, and then they stepped forward, grabbed Lucas by the arms, and held him between them. Lucas struggled a few times while being held between them. When he found he couldn't move, he finally shifted his gaze from me to Mrs. Chi beside me and said grudgingly, Mom. There was still a bit of helplessness on his face. Mrs. Chi covered her nose and frowned. She said, Control your pheromones. Don't scare James. The scent of alcohol in the air faded a lot. Only then did Mrs. Chi turn to me gently and say, "James, don't be afraid. Lucas didn't do it on purpose. He just likes you so much that he got a bit excited and couldn't hold back." "Oh my God, Mrs. Chi. Are you even listening to what you're saying? He doesn't look like he likes me at all. It's obvious that he wants to devour me alive." I awkwardly let out a couple of forced laughs and touched my nose. "For the sake of my dad, I'll just go all out." "It's okay, Auntie. I'm much better now." I pointed at Lucas. "Lucas seems to be quite uncomfortable. Why don't you let him go?" Mrs. Chi seemed to be taken aback by what I said. She was both surprised and delighted. Then she said to the black-clothed men, "Let him go." I walked towards Lucas, looked up at him, nervously rubbed my fingers together, and shyly said, I also like you quite a lot. The smell of your pheromones is very nice." Lucas curled his lips, lowered his head and leaned close to my ear, saying in a low voice, "Your face is so red." Then he got even closer, sniffed around my neck, and said, "You smell so good, wife." His lips accidentally or intentionally brushed against my neck. I instantly got goosebumps all over, like a male monkey being flirted with. My face turned completely red. I resisted the urge to take a step back and said, "That should be the smell of my pheromones." I heard a soft chuckle by my ear. Then Lucas stood up straight, reached out and took my hand, and said to Mrs. Chi, who had been quietly laughing behind me, "Mom, I'm taking him away." I immediately became nervous. Where was he taking me? I didn't want to be alone with Lucas yet. I always felt that something bad would happen. I looked back at Mrs. Chi for help, hoping that she would keep me here. Unexpectedly, Lucas didn't even wait for Mrs. Chi's reply. He even forcibly turned my head back and led me upstairs. I only heard a voice floating from behind. "Lucas, be gentle with James. You still have to go for registration this afternoon." I hadn't even figured out what the first half of Mrs. Chi's words meant when Lucas had already led me into a room and slammed the door shut with a loud noise. He pinned me against the door, his arm around my waist. He lowered his head and nuzzled my shoulder. I felt him getting closer to my gland and taking a sniff. It seemed that he really liked my pheromones. This was actually a good thing for me. It would be best if my pheromones could make him unable to leave me. In this way, the Chi family wouldn't go back on their word, and my father's company could get back on track as soon as possible. So I secretly released a little bit of my pheromones. The head on my shoulder moved, and his hair brushed against my neck, which tickled. I raised my hand to scratch it, but he grabbed it with his other hand. Then I heard him take a deep breath and say in a muffled voice, "Do you usually do this to others?" I could feel that Lucas' mouth was very close to my gland. This was very dangerous. He was like a hunting predator staring intently at his prey. As long as I answered yes, he would bite me the next second. Although I didn't understand what he meant, out of the instinct to avoid danger, I shook my head and quickly denied it, saying, "No, it's only like this with you." Lucas let out a laugh and his lips touched my gland. I stiffened my body. How could he kiss my gland with his mouth? That had left my shoulder and pressed against my forehead. The lips that had just touched my gland were only a few centimeters away from my mouth. Then I heard him say in a coquettish tone, "Wife, I can't hold it in anymore. Can I kiss you?" I stared wide-eyed, my eyes full of disbelief. I almost blurted out, "Of course not," but I managed to hold it back. I didn't dare, for I was afraid that Lucas would get angry. However, the alpha in front of me was very patient and kept waiting for my answer. He rubbed his nose against mine and continued to ask, "Can I, wife?" No, this was just too much of a foul. My fingers curled up involuntarily and there was a tingling sensation in my bones. I kept brainwashing myself. Since I was going to get married, this kind of thing was definitely unavoidable in the future. I couldn't and shouldn't refuse. It wasn't a big deal. Just think of it as getting used to it in advance. I closed my eyes and my fingers nervously grabbed the corner of the alpha's clothes. My voice trembled uncontrollably as I said yes. I couldn't see Lucas' expression. I only heard him say, "What should I do?" I seemed to be unable to control myself. Then he held my head and kissed me. Along with that came a strong smell of wine. Clearly, I hadn't drunk any alcohol, but I felt drunk. My head was dizzy and my body was so hot. Could one get drunk just by smelling Lucas, wine, scented pheromones? In a daze, I heard Lucas' voice saying, "Open your mouth." I obediently opened my mouth and he hooked my tongue. I seemed to be even more drunk. My body was getting hotter and hotter. I was so restless that I wanted to vent, so I licked Lucas' lips. Lucas must have been drunk too. He kissed me forcefully, so hard that I could hardly breathe. I felt like I was going to die. I wanted to tell him to stop kissing me, but the words were always blocked in my mouth and I could only make whimpering sounds. I pushed him hard, but he simply ignored me and kept kissing me. Just when I thought I was going to be kissed to death, he finally let me go. I was like a dying fish on the shore, suddenly back in the water, gasping for air. "You're crying." Lucas held my face and wiped away my tears with his fingertips, then made a move to kiss me again. Again? I was so scared that I turned my head and dodged. Seeing the corners of Lucas's mouth droop, I quickly explained in a soft voice, "Can you wait a bit? I'm still catching my breath." This is even more humble than going to work. Lucas didn't say anything either. He just looked at me with great interest. No one spoke and the room was so quiet that only my gasping could be heard. Suddenly, the atmosphere became extremely awkward. I really wanted to open the door and run out. Who could come to save me? I silently made my breathing shallower and tried to keep it as quiet as possible. Suddenly, Lucas said, "Okay, you've stopped panting." Just as I was about to defend myself, he added, "Wife, it's been really hard for me to hold back." Then he kissed me again until my lips lost all sensation. After that, he carried me to the bed and asked me, "Wife, can I mark you?" Why can he ask so straightforwardly? Isn't he ashamed? Why is it me who feels ashamed when it's him asking? I really want to grab the quilt next to me and cover my head with it. It'd be best if I could suffocate and pass out so that I don't have to face this. I really couldn't help but ask him, "Why do you always ask? Just do whatever you want. You don't need to ask me." Anyway, things have come to this. One more step or one less step doesn't matter. He answered seriously, "Because it's my wife's first time. I want to get my wife's consent." My heart skipped a beat. I nervously avoided his gaze. His gaze was so serious, like looking at a lover. One second I was still touched by Lucas and the next second Lucas is not a human being. I cried until my throat was hoarse and my eyes were swollen, but he still didn't let me go. I pleaded with him again and again to stop and that I didn't want it anymore. He said aggrievedly, "But my wife's body doesn't want to let me go." That's because of his pheromones. At first, I could still stick to my principles. Later, my mind was in a daze and the only thought in my head was to run. My two trembling legs couldn't run far. The overwhelming smell of wine wrapped around me from behind. I immediately lost my strength. My legs went weak and I fell to the ground. A pair of strong arms caught me. Because of the pheromones, I involuntarily leaned towards the person behind me. The person behind me seemed quite dissatisfied and said, "Why are you running?" He wrapped his arms around my neck, approached my gland, opened his mouth and bit down, then frantically injected his pheromones. Lucas has gone crazy. I'm going to die. Vaguely, I heard someone knocking on the door and then voices sounded. "How is James? Is he still not awake?" "Yes. My boy, I've told you to be gentle with James. Omegas are meant to be cherished. Look at what you've done to James. There isn't a single good place on his body. No matter how much you like him, you can't do this. If you scare James away, you won't have a wife. Mom, keep your voice down. He's been tired these days. Let him sleep a little longer. Now you know how to feel sorry for him." I couldn't hear clearly what was said later. There was a long-haired monster chasing me. I wanted to shout for help, but my throat couldn't make a sound. I ran desperately, sprinted frantically. After a long time, I looked back, and the monster turned into Lucas. I saw him slowly open his mouth and shout, "Wife." I was startled and then opened my eyes. As soon as I opened my eyes, Lucas' face appeared in front of me. I let out a scream and stepped back. Seeing this, Lucas quickly held me down, along with my hand. He said, "Don't move around." I looked down and only then noticed that there was an 4 needle on the back of my hand. If Lucas hadn't held me down in time, the needle would have been pulled out forcefully. Seeing that I had calmed down, Lucas asked with a hurt expression, "Am I that scary?" I muttered in my heart, "You're scarier than a monster." I didn't answer and asked, "What's wrong with me?" Only when I opened my mouth did I realize that my voice was very hoarse. He coughed awkwardly and said, "You're sick." Looking at his awkward expression, I realized that I had gone too far with the fun and ended up in the hospital. Oh no. How can I face people from now on? I glared at Lucas in shame and anger and said, "It's all your fault for going too far. Wife, I'm wrong. I'll restrain myself a bit in the future." But the doctor said that part of the reason is also that you're not in good physical condition and lack exercise on weekdays, so you can't stand it. I subconsciously retorted, impossible. I exercise regularly. My voice got softer and softer. Wife, considering your health, I think you still need to exercise more in the future. Lucas scanned me up and down and continued, after all, if you faint and get sick every time we do it, I'll be heartbroken. If I had to go to the hospital every time we did it, I might as well stop living. I nodded and replied, all right then. Lucas leaned over and gave me a kiss on the lips, saying cheerfully, good girl, wife. Lucas, why are you being so clingy? I looked around. I hadn't noticed when I first woke up. Isn't this Lucas' bedroom? Someone knocked on the door. Lucas said, come in. The person outside the door came in. It was a doctor wearing a white coat and gold-rimmed glasses. He removed the needle from me and said, there's nothing wrong with your body. Just rest well for a few days. Then he packed up his things and left. I asked puzzledly, why does the doctor seem reluctant to get close to me? Lucas curled his lips and his beautiful almond-shaped eyes squinted slightly because you're covered in my scent. I sniffed. It was really true. I touched the gland on the back of my neck, which had a deep tooth mark. I had been permanently marked by Lucas. It's hard to describe how I felt. It was just quite subtle. Lucas took off his shoes, lifted the quilt, and got in. He reached out to hug me and kiss me again. I moved back, but he squeezed over and continued to kiss me. He asked me, why are you avoiding me? I argued cunningly I didn't. I asked him, when shall we go to register? He countered with a question, are you in such a hurry? I nodded. Yes. Lucas saw through my thoughts. He pinched my cheek and said, your father's money has been given. We'll go to register after you recover. You're not fit to go out in your current state. What state am I in? I wanted to get up and look at myself in the mirror, but Lucas clung to me and wouldn't let me get up. He wanted to kiss me again and kept groping me. I grabbed his hand. No. The doctor told me to have a good rest. Lucas said brazenly, honey, I'll just give you a kiss and a feel and do nothing else. Actually, it was quite pleasant if only Lucas didn't kiss me for so long. Gradually, my consciousness became more and more blurred. I closed my eyes and fell asleep. So strange. It seems that people can really develop feelings after getting along for a long time. I seemed to have a crush on Lucas. I thought things between Lucas and me would stay like this. But unexpectedly, something unexpected happened. On the day we went to register, we had a car accident. At the corner, an out-of-control car rammed into us. Lucas shielded me under his body. With a bang. It was so painful. I've never felt such pain in my life. I wanted to open my eyes but couldn't. I had no strength in my hands and feet. How was Lucas? Would we die? If we can survive, I will definitely treat Lucas well. I swear. It was so noisy around. Many people were talking, and there was also the sound of an ambulance. I wanted to listen clearly, but I couldn't hear anything. I opened my eyes and squinted due to the glare of the overhead light. After getting used to it, I opened them again. The room was blindingly white. I was in a daze and then remembered that Lucas and I had a car accident. This time, I really ended up in the hospital. James, you're finally awake. Mom was sitting beside my bed, with a worried look on her face. Why do I think she looks even more haggard? I sat up and held Mom's hand. Mom, don't worry. I'm fine. How is Lucas? He's still in a coma. Lucas shielded me under his body at that time. He must be much more seriously injured than me. I'm going to see him. I threw off the quilt and got out of bed. I couldn't wait for a moment. My mom grabbed me and refused to let me go no matter what. The more she stopped me from seeing him, the more I felt that something was wrong. I was anxious and said to her, Mom, I'm really okay. Please let me go and see him. My mother hugged me and cried, saying sorry to me and also saying that I shouldn't see Lucas anymore in the future. I felt like my mind wasn't working properly. What on earth was going on? I looked utterly confused and asked, Mom, what's really going on? I was in a coma for 5 days and Lucas was also in a coma for 5 days, but he was more seriously injured. This car accident also aggravated his pheromone disorder. Lucas is sick. After he became an adult, his pheromones were disordered and very unstable. Only the pheromones of an omega with a high compatibility with him could soothe him and make him act like a normal alpha. The higher the compatibility, the more effective it would be. If the pheromone disorder persists for a long time, it will endanger the alpha's glands. In severe cases, the glands will have to be removed in the end. This is also the reason why Mrs. Chi found me. Mrs. Chi searched for a long time before she found an omega like me whose pheromone compatibility with him is as high as over 95%. Before finding me, Lucas had always relied on taking drugs to stabilize his pheromones. However, every medicine has its side effects. Taking drugs for a long time caused Lucas to sometimes lose control of his pheromones. During these 5 days, because I was in a coma, I couldn't release pheromones to soothe Lucas. On the day of the car accident, the doctor arranged for us to be in the same ward. My pheromones were too weak when I was in a coma and didn't have much effect. They also tried to extract my pheromones, but the amount was simply not enough. Coincidentally, the next day, an omega with a pheromone compatibility of up to 99.6% with Lucas appeared. This omega has been accompanying Lucas these days, releasing pheromones to soothe him. With such a high compatibility, it's hard to resist by instinct, right? There should be only one like this in the world, right? God really likes to play tricks on people. I wiped my face and said in a low voice, "I understand, Mom. I still want to go and have a look." My mom glanced at me and finally didn't stop me anymore, allowing me to go. This corridor in the hospital seemed to be endless. I quickened my pace and started running. I ran to Lucas' room out of breath and met Mrs. Chi. The first thing she said when she saw me was an embarrassed apology. "I'm really tired of hearing the word sorry. Why does everyone have to say sorry to me? No one owes me anything. It's just a deal, mutual exploitation. The Chi family treats me as a tool, and isn't it the same that I treat the Chi family as a tool?" At a critical moment, this tool didn't work. The Chi family didn't care. They not only didn't take back the money they gave to my family, but also paid my medical bills. To be honest, I still have to thank the Chi family. I pleaded with Mrs. Chi, "Auntie, can I go in? I'll just take a look and leave." Mrs. Chi hesitated for a moment but still nodded. She took my hand and said kindly, just like the first time we met, "Of course you can." I opened the door and walked in. There was a person sitting inside, quietly reading a book. He looked up, was stunned when he saw me, and then smiled gently. "You're awake." It was that beautiful omega. I let out an and also smiled at him. He didn't say anything else and continued to read with his head down. I slowly walked to the bedside. Lucas was lying quietly in the bed. His head was wrapped like a bun, with only his eyes, nose, and mouth exposed. That brown curly hair had been cut off, leaving only short stubble. His right calf was also wrapped in bandages and hung up. Lucas protected me very well. All I had was a broken arm and a few pieces of glass shards stuck in my body, which had already been removed and were almost healed, leaving only scars. I wanted to touch his face, but the hand I stretched out froze in mid-air. It seemed that I didn't have the right to do so. I sniffed. I could hardly smell the scent of wine. The room was filled with the sweet orange smell of the omega. As soon as I opened the door, I smelled it. It was too strong, and Lucas' body was also full of that omega smell. The alpha who had marked me was contaminated with the smell of another omega. Almost instinctively, I released my pheromones, trying to cover up the orange smell on my alpha. By the time I realized it, it was too late. That omega frowned and looked at me. I quickly put away my pheromones and apologized to him. "Sorry, I didn't mean to." I ran away as guiltily as a thief. The moment I ran out of the door, my tears fell completely uncontrollably. While crying, I cursed, "What kind of a cheesy plot is this? Don't you understand the principle of first come, first served? Even if we take a step back, it would be better if that omega had met Lucas first. Why did you have to involve me? It's them who have a happy ending, and it's me who's sad. And I can't blame anyone. What a mess these things are." I cried outside for quite a while. After venting, I went back to the ward. When my mother saw my swollen and red eyes, she hugged me lovingly. She sighed and then asked me to lie back in bed and have a good rest. Running around outside really tired me out. I lay down and took a nap. When I woke up, I heard someone outside saying that Lucas was awake. While my mother was not around, I sneaked over. There were people inside and outside the room. I squeezed in and stood in a corner by the door, peeping inside. Lucas was sitting on the bed and the doctor beside him was conducting various examinations on him. "Hey, what are you doing here as a patient? Go back quickly." I don't know who said such a thing behind me. I smiled awkwardly. Just as I was about to withdraw my gaze, Lucas inside suddenly turned his head and glanced in my direction. Did he see me? The omega standing next to Lucas also looked over. There seemed to be some displeasure in his eyes when he looked at me. I felt out of place and left. Every day after that, I would secretly go to the door of Lucas' room to look at him when no one was around, and I wouldn't leave until he saw me. With the little thought that maybe Lucas still remembered me, I showed up in front of Lucas every day. Some things and some people can only be obtained through striving. One has to make an effort, right? However, it seemed to have no effect. He never came to me. Actually, I really wanted to question him why he didn't come to see me, but there was never a chance. That Omega watched him too closely. Once, when he caught me there, he directly called the bodyguards to drive me away. I'm going to be discharged from the hospital. Actually, I've been fine for a long time. It's okay to recuperate at home, but I still stayed in the hospital for a few more days. My parents went to handle the discharge procedures for me. I sat on the bench outside waiting for them. There were few people here and it was quiet. Why didn't you come yesterday? A familiar voice came. I looked up and saw Lucas standing in front of me. His almond-shaped eyes were staring intently at me. The bandages on him had all been removed, but his leg was still a bit lame. It had been a long time since I last heard his voice. I felt like crying. I rubbed my eyes and asked, "Is your leg still not healed?" Seeing that I answered irrelevantly, he squinted his eyes and asked again, "Why do you come to peek at me every day? Do you like me?" I looked at him in shock and said with difficulty, "You? Don't you remember me?" Did Lucas lose his memory? But on the day he woke up, I clearly saw him calling out all the relatives who came to visit him. Could it be that he simply forgot about me? I racked my brains every day to see him, acting like a thief. Yet he didn't remember me. No wonder he didn't react at all when I was around him every day. How dare he ask me why I didn't go to see him? The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Pointing at him, I scolded, "You're such a heartless man." Suddenly, he bent down. I don't know what he smelled, but he kept sniffing around me. After a while, he stared at me with a dark look in his eyes and said, "There seems to be my scent on you. After all these days, could there still be a scent?" I tightened my coat and moved aside. I said crossly, "You're smelling things wrong." He took a step forward, grabbed my neck, and opened my collar. He rubbed his fingers back and forth on my gland. He tilted his head and gave me a very charming smile, saying wickedly, "I bit here, right?" My gland hurt a bit from his pressing. I retorted, "No, it was bitten by another man." Lucas still smiled, but his smile was very creepy. I bit his arm. He let out a cry of pain. Taking advantage of his loosened grip, I immediately ran away. I angrily gave the finger to the sky. This is crazy. I could write a novel about my legendary life. After venting my anger, I felt so powerless. I don't believe in fate, but fate seems to force me to. First, there's an Omega with a higher compatibility than me. Then, he remembers everyone but me. All these things are pushing me to leave Lucas. I don't care anymore. I'm done with this. Before leaving the hospital, I went to see Mrs. Chi. I took out the jade pendant from my pocket and put it in Mrs. Chi's hand. I said to her, "Auntie, this is the jade pendant Lucas gave me. Please return it to him for me." Auntie seemed very surprised. Looking at the jade pendant in her hand, she said, "So, Lucas gave this to you, James." I heard my mother calling me. She must be urging me to go home. I smiled at Mrs. Chi and said, "Goodbye, Auntie." I turned around and left. I heard Mrs. Chi mutter, "Did I do something wrong? Goodbye, Lucas." Before leaving the hospital yesterday, I made an appointment for a surgery to remove the mark. The appointment was at 9 o'clock this morning. I went to the hospital, finished the examination, and without hesitation signed all the confirmation agreements. Then I sat on the bench in the corridor waiting for my turn to be called. Suddenly, I heard a very loud shout, "James." The voice sounded very angry. Then a large figure ran over and hugged me tightly. With a hurt look on his face, he said, "Wife, don't you want me anymore?" His sudden change left me caught off guard. The voice was really loud. Everyone's eyes in the place were focused on us. Embarrassed, I pushed Lucas. His hair tickled my face so much, but he acted as if he didn't see it and complained rather aggrievedly, "Wife, you're still carrying my baby in your belly." After saying that, he kissed me. Now not only the onlookers were shocked, but I was also shocked. I was so shocked that I forgot about the embarrassment. Immediately afterwards, the doctor who had just examined me walked over and said, "Yes, Mr. James, you're pregnant. I just didn't have time to tell you before you left." I was so confused that I couldn't say a word. James. Mrs. Chi also came. "James, it's my fault and shouldn't have separated you two." The day Lucas woke up, he said he woke up because he smelled the fragrance of lychees. I didn't pay attention at that time. Later, I remembered that it was the smell of your pheromones. Lucas didn't remember you. I thought maybe it was fate, so I didn't tell him about your existence. Lucas doesn't like Benjamin. Although the compatibility between the two of them is higher than that between you two, out of consideration for Lucas's health, I always kept him by Lucas's side and wouldn't let Lucas go out. The day you were discharged from the hospital, Lucas completely drove Benjamin away. He asked me if you were his omega. Then I knew that he had secretly gone to see you. That jade pendant was given to him by his grandma. It's very important to him. I didn't expect him to give it to you. It was only then that I realized I was wrong, terribly wrong. Now I'm returning it to you. James, Lucas likes you very much. He fell for you at first sight. I was confused. I shouldn't have made choices for him. I almost made him lose you. Then have all my tears these days been shed in vain? Lucas followed up and said, "Yes, it's all my mom's fault. If she had told me earlier, I would have snatched you over long ago." He winked at me. "Honey, shall we go home? It's really hard to resist the temptation of good looks." I nodded and said, "Okay." Lucas still hasn't remembered. The doctor said it's just a short-term amnesia and he will remember, it's just a matter of time. Of course, if I accompany him more, he will remember faster. For me now, it doesn't matter whether Lucas remembers or not. There are only a few days worth of memories anyway, and there will be a long time ahead.